Ashley Stitchbury was hoping to salvage something out of the weekend in Timaru. In this final race, he is fourth on the grid, but it's still the Aussie duo of Steve Johnson and Paul Morris out front.
So Junior Johnson on the pole position for the third time today. This one based on the fastest laps from the previous races. Alongside of him, Paul Morris, just as before. Then the two Mustangs of Ashley Stitchbury and Mark Pedersen. Alan Ferguson in the fifth spot. Last race of the day about to start for the Noel Leeming New Zealand TraNZam Championship field. And the same two guys up front, ready to do battle one more time in their two Chevy Camaros. Only this time they have right on their tail Ashley Stitchbury, as this view from Mark Pedersen's Iowa Mustang shows. Down the back straight at Timaru into the very, very quick left-hander. And tricky, we might add. Look at the cars bobbling around there as they're looking for any movement in the car ahead, just to dive down the inside, but none is obvious. Junior Johnson holds down the lead. Paul Morris next, then Stitch in the Shell Mustang. Mark Pedersen at last getting some races in this car after really only having a debut in Pukekohe, one race at Wellington I think it was, missed Ruapuna altogether, so really enjoying himself today and finally getting a few races under his belt in the Iowa Mustang. Junior Johnson, though, the one really enjoying himself. I mean really enjoying himself out front of the race. What more could you do? Lots of smoke there in the background. I think it might have been from this man, John Miller IV, in the PLC Direct Camaro. Had a bit of an eventful day, has John, with one off in the last race of his own accord. And says that he's finding it a little difficult to settle down to these Hoosier tyres that the cars have to run in New Zealand. Okay, this is the Mustang fight. Teammates. And look how competitive Mark Pedersen is now. Suddenly right on the case as he gets back onto the back bumper, if it had one, of Ashley Stitchbury's Mustang. Well, it's sort of got a bumper. But good show there from Mark Pedersen, really closing up on Stitchbury. So Stitch not able to get away at all as he pursues Paul Morris. Don't know why Alan Ferguson is right back at the back of the field behind John Miller. Must have been something happened to him that dumped him to the back of the grid in the earlier race. Slower time, I guess, because that's what they kicked the grid off for the finale of the day. More smoke again. In fact, I think it's from Mark Pedersen's Iowa car as he takes the S's. But out front, Junior Johnson, no sign of any problems whatsoever as these two Chevy Camaros out front, two Ford Mustangs next, and then the two Chevys again behind. Of course, Craig Gilbert not able to make this race with too much damage on his Chevy Lumina from that big crash right here. John Miller IV, the man out of the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, come over here as with a reputation as TraNZam Rookie of the Year in 1996. And good for the local guys to measure themselves up against this North American racer who says that the competition that he's seen here today is actually better than what he faces in the TraNZam series in his part of the field, that is midfield, back home in the States. Of course, there are the works teams out front with lots and lots of dollars going into them, but midfield runners, these guys have got it over them, he reckons. So, bit of a compliment to the Kiwis there from John Miller, who's really had to give best to them, of course, today, promising much better next week at Teretonga once he can settle down into the Kiwi way of racing. Mark Pedersen, though, the one who's really settled down here. Look how much that car is moving around as he tracks Ashley Stitchbury. And Miller doing a bit of a much more competitive job in this race and staying ahead of Alan Ferguson, which is taking some doing, I'd say. So there we go, Stitchbury versus Pedersen. Good to see these two Mustangs out there in action. Would have been nice to see their teammate Shane Drake there with them, because he put in a great performance in dry testing on Friday, and fourth fastest on Friday. Saturday brought the rain. He took it tiptoed around the place and then handed the car over to Stitch after his big crash in the wet conditions. But Paul Morris now tracking Junior Johnson, getting away ahead of him a little bit there. Paul Morris has at least managed to clock up that one win. Johnson trying to make it 2-1 in his favour and so stay ahead or maintain his lead in the championship. Junior Johnson, the NZ car, run by Bruce Jenner. Lovely pictures there of the car working into the S's. Oh, and the tyres going off on Morris's car. Well, that's a sign that that's the end of the day, and it is the end of the race, just about. So Morris had tyre trouble, but no troubles out front for Junior Johnson, taking out his second win of the day, ahead of Paul Morris, with Stitch third and Mark Pedersen a competitive fourth.
It's good to win this memorial race for because Andy McElroy took it off me last year, and it was good to get it under my belt this year, and it's just good to come back to New Zealand and see all my old friends again.
Good.
So Stephen Johnson finishes the weekend with 179 points. Paul Morris still in striking distance with 156, and Alan Ferguson third on 127.